Imagine waking up, right, and finding a limb that you absolutely swear isn't yours. Or maybe mistaking your partner, someone you love, for a piece of furniture. And not because your eyes are bad, but because your brain just isn't making sense of what it's seeing. Now, these aren't scenes from some, wild dream or a thriller movie. They are astonishing, deeply human realities. Things experienced by patients of the legendary neurologist Oliver Sacks. Today, we're taking a deep dive into his incredible work. Our mission here is to explore how the brain's unique wiring really shapes our reality. What happens when that wiring goes awry? And crucially, what these extraordinary cases teach us about identity, resilience, and maybe even the meaning of being human. We're here to pull out some surprising facts and hopefully some profound insights that will really stick with you.
Yeah, and what's truly exceptional about Dr. Sacks's approach, I think, is that he wasn't just, ticking boxes and diagnosing conditions. He really delved into the individual's unique world. He tried to understand the person behind the diagnosis, even when they faced the most bizarre neurological challenges. He brought this immense emotional, and you could say philosophical depth to these stories. He treated every patient like a profound teacher.
Absolutely. And maybe to really get a feel for Sacks's unique perspective, the best place to start is this strange, almost unbelievable thing that happened to him when he was a medical student. Picture this. It's a cold winter, December 31st. A patient gets admitted, complaining about his left leg, just a bit uncomfortable, nothing seemingly major. Sacks suggests admitting him, and the patient falls asleep, nice and warm in a hospital bed. But then the night takes this really bizarre turn. The patient wakes up feeling something. Cold, like something's moving under the covers. He feels around and discovers this cold, stiff leg on the bed, and he starts screaming. Totally convinced it's not attached to his body, he's desperately trying to pull off what he believes is like a detached corpse's leg that somehow ended up in his bed.
It sounds like something out of a horror film.
Exactly. But this actually happened. Doctors rush in and they find this poor guy frantically trying to tear off his own left leg. It's almost impossible to wrap your head around, isn't it?
It really is. And that event, it just highlights such a fundamental part of how we exist, doesn't it? How our brain builds this internal map of our own body. That patient had this severe breakdown in their body schema, that internal sense of your body, and proprioception. Proprioception is that, subconscious sense of where your limbs are without having to look. And the big takeaway here is just how fragile that connection is, the one between our brain and how we perceive reality. It shows how vital these seemingly automatic functions are to our very sense of self.
Wow. So yeah, that shocking story really lays bare the brain's potential fragility. Okay, so let's dive into our first main theme then, the stories of loss. What happens when parts of this incredible machinery, our brain, seem to diminish or break down? And maybe the most famous case, the one that gave his iconic book its title, is Dr. P, the man who mistook his wife for a hat. So Dr. P, he was this celebrated opera singer and music professor, seemed to have it all together. But then he started having these strange visual problems. He couldn't recognize his students' faces anymore, and his eyesight itself, totally fine. But visually, people were becoming strangers unless he heard their voice. And then it got, stranger. He started greeting parked cars like they were people he knew. And then that infamous moment, right? Trying to pick up his own wife's head off the coat rack, thinking it was his hat. What was actually going on with Dr. P, and how did he possibly cope with losing visual recognition like that?
Well, Dr. P had what's called visual agnosia. It's a condition where the brain just struggles massively to interpret what the eyes are seeing, even though the eyes are perfectly healthy. But what's truly astonishing, maybe even more than the diagnosis, was his incredible ability to adapt. I mean, think about it. His visual processing was severely broken, but he didn't just stop functioning. He compensated profoundly. He leaned heavily on sound, on patterns, and especially on music to navigate his world. He'd hum a little tune to remember the steps for getting dressed, or, a specific creak of a door would tell him what to do next. And Sacks's advice to him became this lifeline. Music used to be the center of your life, but now it must become your whole life. Dr. P's story is just such a powerful testament to how identity isn't just about what we lose, right? It's about how deeply we can adapt and sort of redefine ourselves using what we still have. He found meaning, he found order through the one sense, the one faculty that was still vibrant for him, music. It really shows you the brain's amazing plasticity, even when facing huge changes.
That adaptability is just mind-blowing. Another really powerful example from this loss category is Christina. She was a woman who suddenly lost her proprioception, that sense of her body's position and movement gone. She literally couldn't feel her body, didn't know where her arms or legs were unless she was constantly looking right at them. Her movements became really robotic, and she actually described her own body as feeling like a strange machine. How did she even face something so fundamental, so existential?
Her determination was just unwavering. Christina had to consciously guide every single movement. Imagine that, like a puppeteer pulling her own strings. Yet she refused to just give in to paralysis. It really highlights the incredible strength of the human will, doesn't it? The drive to adapt, to persist, even against odds that seem completely insurmountable. Her journey kind of underscores how meaning can be found even in that painstaking effort, relearning the most basic things, redefining what it even means to control your own physical self.
It's humbling. Then there's Stephen, a man dealing with severe short-term memory loss. His daily life was just this constant stream of newness he couldn't remember anything from, like a few minutes ago, which meant every single morning he had to read his own diary just to figure out who he was. He'd actually written in it, "I meet myself every day, but I want to know who I am."
Mm-hmm. What did Sachs learn from Stephen about identity, about memory?
Stephen's case, it reveals something really profound, I think. While memory, especially remembering facts and events, plays a huge role in our sense of self, a core human essence can still persist even when that explicit memory is gone. His emotions, his empathy, his inherent kindness, that was all still there. Sachs showed us that identity runs deeper than just the memories we can recall. It really makes you consider what truly defines you. And it places the possibility of finding real meaning and connection even in a present that's constantly shifting, where the emotional truth of a moment might actually transcend whether you remember it later.
Right. So from these stories of profound loss, let's now kind of flip the coin. Let's turn to the stories of excess. What happens when parts of the brain become too active? Sometimes, as we'll see, this can bring out remarkable new abilities, but other times it's a huge challenge, one that forces us to question what normal even means. Think about Natasha. She was an 88-year-old woman who suddenly experienced this almost unbelievable burst of youthful energy, happiness, even romantic interest. Her friends were, understandably, pretty concerned. They urged her to see a doctor. And the diagnosis was, well, quite shocking. Syphilis affecting her brain, specifically stimulating certain areas in her cortex. But Natasha's reaction was maybe even more surprising. She told Sachs, essentially, "I like this state. I'm worried people will judge me, but I also don't want this good feeling to just disappear with treatment. I just want it to stay this way." How did Sachs even begin to handle a situation like that?
Well, Sachs showed profound respect for her autonomy, her choice. Now, the underlying infection, the syphilis, was managed medically, of course, but the brain changes, the damage, were irreversible. And so she continued to live in that positive, almost euphoric state. Natasha's story directly challenges our usual medical thinking, doesn't it? Is cure always about getting back to some perceived baseline? Or can profound well-being, a real sense of meaning, actually show up in these unexpected neurological realities? It demands that we respect a patient's self-determination, what they want, over maybe what we define as normalcy. It's a powerful reminder that the path to a fulfilling life can look very different for different people.
But as you mentioned, not all excess leads to this kind of newfound happiness.
Yeah.
Take Miguel. He was a rural man whose imagination suddenly became, well, abnormally explosive due to a brain issue. Sachs asked him to do something simple. Draw a clock. Instead, Miguel drew this elaborate 3D apple in a box, and then a kite flying vividly in the sky. He even described seeing the kite flying and feeling like he was holding the string.
Yeah, and this is where the story gets deeply unsettling. After treatment antibiotics and tranquilizers to calm down that excessive brain activity, Miguel's condition normalized. But what he gained in quote-unquote normalcy, he completely lost in terms of his unique inner world. He lamented, he said, "Now I don't see anything. Before I could vividly imagine, but after treatment, everything seems dead." This case just reveals the complex, sometimes really heartbreaking, double-edged sword of neurological treatment. Curing a symptom can sometimes inadvertently erase a unique part of who someone is, their very way of engaging with life and finding meaning in it. It really makes you reflect on the unique qualities we each have and the sort of intrinsic value of our own internal landscapes.
That's tough. On a more, perhaps uplifting note within this excess theme, there's William. He was a young man with autism spectrum disorder. He struggled profoundly with verbal communication, faced a lot of challenges, yet he had this absolutely astounding musical talent. He could play complex classical pieces perfectly after hearing them just once. What did Sachs discover about William's inner world through his music?
Sachs observed, and I'm paraphrasing slightly, William expresses emotions through music that he cannot verbalize. His music is his soul. It just perfectly illustrates how human connection, how profound expression isn't limited to just conventional language. It's such a beautiful reminder that deep intelligence and emotional depth can show up in countless unexpected ways, and that finding meaning, communicating our essence, doesn't always need typical forms of interaction. It really encourages us to look for those hidden languages languages of humanity all around us,
Absolutely. Okay, so now let's move into some of Sachs's most, I think, emotionally resonant stories, where the journey itself becomes this profound transformation. This is our transition theme cases involving memory, healing, and really deep personal change. Let's talk about Donald. His story is tragic. He murdered his girlfriend while high on drugs and then had absolutely no memory of it. Zero. All the tests, even hypnosis, confirmed it was genuine amnesia. He spent 4 years in a psychiatric hospital, seemed completely reformed. But then, this cruel twist of fate, he gets into a bicycle accident, falls into a coma. When he wakes up, the memory of the murder floods back, vividly, inescapably. It just tormented him. He actually attempted suicide, completely overwhelmed by the weight of this past he suddenly horrifically remembered. What unique path did Sachs guide him towards then?
Sachs's advice to Donald was, well, both profound and elegantly simple in a way. He encouraged Donald to find solace, to find purpose in meaningful work, specifically gardening, nurturing plants. Sachs' insight here was, the greatest cure for mental illness is healthy labor and love. For Donald, tending to these plants provided an object for his care, maybe even his love, something crucial for his healing process. It just highlights the profound therapeutic power of purpose, of giving care and attention to something outside of yourself. It offers this powerful lesson, doesn't it? That even when you're grappling with an unbearable past, you might still find a path to some kind of redemption, some meaning, through acts of creation and connection. Finding peace through tending to life.
A path forward through tending life. That's powerful. And finally, let's turn to Rebecca. She was a 19-year-old with intellectual disabilities. She appeared, immature for her age, got lost easily, often wore her clothes inside out. She stuttered. She'd lost her parents when she was just 3, and her grandmother was her sole anchor. Her grandmother read her fairy tales, and these stories were her main connection to reality, a real source of nourishment for her. The big aha moment for Sachs happened when he saw Rebecca in a park one day, just observing nature. Despite all her perceived flaws, she appeared noble, dignified even. She seemed to express this silent reverence for beauty, like she was saying without words, "Isn't it beautiful?" What did Sachs realize about her in that moment?
That was a truly transformative realization for Sachs, he reflected later. We pay too much attention to patients' defects and often overlook their remaining abilities. Rebecca made me realize that. Her healing journey continued through things like art therapy theater, poetry, which allowed her to express emotions she couldn't easily verbalize. And after her beloved grandmother died, her response was just incredibly poignant and poetic. She said something like, "Grandma has traveled to her soul's home. I'm sad not because of Grandma, but because of myself. I feel cold and slumped like winter, but spring will come again." Wow. That's perhaps the most profound message threaded through all of Sachs' work, isn't it? That true human essence, real meaning, isn't defined by our deficits, by what we lack. It's defined by our capacity for connection, for appreciating beauty, for resilience, even when facing immense challenges. It really makes you stop and think. How often do we overlook the profound abilities, the rich inner worlds of people we perceive as different? And how much meaning do we miss out on because of our own limited view?
Yeah. So putting it all together, what does this all mean? From, a leg that feels alien to a soul expressing itself through poetry despite disabilities. These stories from Oliver Sacks's work, they paint this incredible complex picture of the human brain. They show us its astonishing capacity to adapt. They show the intricate dance between our physical minds and our sense of identity. And they reveal the profound, often totally unexpected resilience of the human spirit. Each case, no matter how strange, offers this unique window into the human condition itself.
Absolutely. And if you step back and look at the bigger picture, Sacks's work is this constant reminder, isn't it? That while science and medicine keep advancing, these illnesses of the mind, as he sometimes called them, often need more than just a cure for the symptoms. They demand understanding, deep empathy, and a real recognition of the unique individual and their personal journey toward finding meaning in their life. And this forces us to ask, I think, a really important question today. In a world that's increasingly focused on diagnosis, on quick fixes, on treatment protocols, are we maybe losing sight of those deeper human elements, the things that truly define us and connect us? Perhaps, as Sacks's work strongly suggests, if we just give each other a bit more interest, more genuine consideration, maybe we can all help comfort and heal each other's hearts in small but significant ways.
That's a beautiful thought. These deep dives into the brain's labyrinth really leave us with something powerful to chew on. What if the most profound meaning in life isn't actually found in having a perfectly functioning mind? What if it's found in our ability to adapt, to connect with others, and to find beauty and purpose right in the middle of life's most unexpected, even difficult challenges? What part of your own inner world, your own unique way of being, might you be overlooking or underestimating right now?
Oliver Sacks really showed us that every single human story, no matter how unusual it seems on the surface, holds a vital lesson about what it means to be alive. His patients weren't just case studies in a textbook. They were truly profound teachers for him and through his writing for all of us.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep connecting.